Alright guys, so here I'm going to talk to you a little bit about skin. We're going to start talking about how to texture skin. I'm using my friend Katya's website here on Pinterest where she talks about anatomy, but there's some really good skin things I want to point out really quick when it comes to the body when painting skin. You have to think about the age of the person, you have to think about the actual skin color you're pulling from, and then you have to think about exactly, other details such as scratches and freckles and so forth. But let's look at this image for a second. If we look at this here on the foot, you'll notice the red areas are on the extremities, and you'll get that a lot with people who are Caucasian. In people who have darker skin, sometimes those will be darker areas, and underneath the hand or foot will be lighter in most cases, in almost everyone. And you'll see that where bone sticks out and tendon sticks out, you will notice things will get lighter, sometimes darker with people with darker skin. But a lot of times when the bone or tendon stick out, there's a little more stress points going on, and those stress points will cause the skin to stretch and become whiter or lighter in pigment. Now, darker on the elbows and some people with darker skin, you have to keep those things in mind. And I want to talk about this theory real quick before we go too far ahead. You'll see here on this shot here of the hip, it's a little bit light here. And you'll see areas of pink in discoloration. I shouldn't say discoloration, but variance in color. You'll see on the inside of the arm. You'll see them on the back of the knuckles. Here's the red areas again on the extremities. And we'll go over here. We'll take a look. Scroll down a little bit. There's a couple other examples I want to show you. Also around the chest area on a female, you'll see the red areas sometimes around the breast here and on the tip. And then you'll see other areas too around the buttocks. And on the face is very, very particular. You have to be careful and make sure you capture it. And you can put red, and this guy's a good example here, you can put red or more detailed areas on the cheek, and his lighting's a little bit off here, or at least not ideal. But you'll see the areas, discoloration on the mouth, and not the average color. The average skin color will be, on this particular guy, will be kind of a nice beige or tan. Actually less beige, more tan. And then in there, also this has to do with the lighting, but in there you'll notice you'll get the redder areas on the nose, the lips, the cheeks, and sometimes around the eye, depending on their age sometimes, or how tired they are. I don't know about you guys, but when I work real late, I get those pigmentations around my eyeballs. So you'll see here in the cheekbone here, it's a little bit red, pink here, pink around the nose, and darker for people with darker skin. Let's look at this fellow here. And he's older, and you'll see the red areas here in the chest. This is from long exposure to the sun. And you'll see it on his brow. You'll see it underneath different areas here, such as his forehead. And I'm trying to think of what else we got. And you'll see this dude's ripped. I'm kind of impressed with this guy. I just want to hang out with him and get a tip or two on lifting stuff. So I just want to point those out. Let's go and I think there's one more I want to show you. Yeah, she looks like she could hurt someone. But you'll also see in darker skin, you'll see lighter areas on surfaces that push forward, such as the breast, such as the stomach area. And you'll even see it on some areas of the shoulder and collarbone. But everybody's a little bit different. So whoever you're pulling from, do your research. Don't assume that you know what their skin pigment's going to look like. I made the mistake in one of my characters. I got a little too carried away with the cheekbone, and he started to look like he had makeup on. Got a little too red. So I had to pull it back, dial it back a little bit. So let's take a look at that guy real quick. So this is my guy here. He's a little more stylized, cartoony, kind of pulling a little bit of the Jack Kirby look and a little bit of the Bruce Timm combined. Harder than it sounds. But you'll notice, if we flip around here, you'll notice the pigmentation. I have normal maps on right now for his muscular veins popping out. I got a little bit of red on the back of the elbow here. I got a little bit red in between the arm and on the bicep. If we come and look at the face, you'll see I got a little bit of red in the cheeks, a little bit darker rings under his eyes. He's a detective, so I figured he wouldn't be sleeping very much. And I probably could have pushed a little bit more red around the ears, and that also could be done too. And what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a base in Photoshop real quick, and then I'm going to show you how to initially import these guys into Mudbox so we can take a look at them. Because I painted all their textures in Mudbox and used a combination of Mudbox and Photoshop together. And so that'll be part 2. This is going to be part 1. I don't want to make these too long. My Camtasia seems to fail. My videos are too heavy since they're HD. So I'll make this one brief as an introduction. So again, you'll see the detail on this guy. I duplicated 2 pieces. You'll notice too there's 2 different colors here. I gave him a little bit more of a farmer's tan, so we have the darker arms and the lighter face. So let's go ahead and export these dudes by themselves real quick. And I do not want the eyebrows, so let's remove the eyebrows for a second. So modify center pivot, and we'll do the same thing here. Hit the G key to repeat the last process. Pull this out. No brows, don't need them right now. And we're going to export selection. Usually the rig will come with it. That's because it's in a group. I haven't removed it yet, so we'll just do export selection real quick. Make this really fast. I'll just put it on the desktop, and actually we'll do desktop Sean, and I think I have a folder called demos in here somewhere. There we go, and we'll call this Jack. Arm, Jack and arm, and we'll hit OK. I'm also going to export them as an FBX. So let's go on File, Export Selection. And you have that option too when you take stuff into Mudbox to do FBX. And the nice thing about that is it'll actually keep your texture information. So I'll just change the name this time. I don't care. Smoothing groups, yeah, you can keep that on. Sometimes Mudbox will read it weird and will ignore your smoothing groups, unfortunately. There we go. We'll just have it close and forget about that. I think because his UVs are kind of out of the space. I had tweaked out his UVs a while back. And we'll see how that plays out. Let me hit the F key to see if it's in place. Yep, there's a UV floating around here somewhere. And let's see if we can find it. We'll just leave it for now. And double check this guy here. Make sure his UVs are in place. Cool. Awesome. Alright, so let me go and close this out. I'm going to just do a new scene for a second, import them just to see what they look like. Let's see here, desktop. Oh, go back. That was back in my demos. Sweet. You'll see my textures kind of came with. That's fine. And we'll do arm and head, FBX, open up, and import. Hit the F key because they're probably way above us. Yay, hit the 6 key so we can see it. Now you'll see the texture disconnected on this guy. I'm not going to worry about that so much because we're going to take them individually into Mudbox for a second. And the reason why I'm bringing them together, not individually, together is I'm going to actually show you how to separate. You can isolate in Mudbox. So before I do that, though, I'm going to make a quick demo of Photoshop. I'm going to go a little bit fast here, so this will be in video format. So what I'm going to do with Photoshop here is I'm going to show you how to lay down the texture groundwork. Like you can make a brush, get it ready to go, and you can take it into Mudbox and you could use it as a stamp. And there's two different types of methods when it comes to Mudbox. Excuse my older Photoshop here. For painting, one is stencil, one is stamp. And you guys, if you saw my videos before, you'll see that. Stamp is kind of your brush, and stencil is how you project your texture on an object. And we'll mess around with the projection in just a second. Alright, so I'll just do a new scene real quick. Here, computer's a little bit laggy because of Camtasia. And I'll just do a 2048 by 2048. Doesn't matter resolution, we can keep it 72 since it's digital. And now what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and put several different colors in here. So I'm going to do red as in one, green as another, and blue. So with each one of these, let me go to, we'll do blue first, kind of a dark blue. I'm going to go ahead and go to filter, I'm going to go to render, I'm going to go to clouds on this guy, and I'll do another one, green, and we'll do render, clouds, and here, on that guy, and then do red. So what I'm doing here is I can make my own quick repeating pattern that I can paint with if I want. And we'll do the same thing. And then now each one of these, we'll set these at 50%. And what this does, this imitates the uneven surface of your skin. Your skin has multiple things going on with red, green, and blue colors, veins and blood, and they will give and cast these colors under your skin. There we go. And the last one we'll put on here is kind of a tan skin color. That'll work for now. And I'm going to dunk it, new layer. Put him at the top. Notice each one of these are 50%. I'm going to place this on here. He's a little bit unhealthy there, but we won't worry about it. We'll worry about it later. But as you notice, I will change my opacity and we'll get a pattern in here. And as I shift the colors, right now he's unhealthy. Here he's a zombie. If you put red on the top and blue in the middle, you'll get more of a human look to it. See that right there? And that all that is a complete repeating pattern. And on the bottom, if you want, you can make it white. If you want to, sometimes I'll do that or tell my students it's okay to do that. That'll act as a filler. So if I flatten this out, I can now have a tiling textured base to work off. I can use this. So real quick, let me flatten this for now. Actually, we're just going to merge these guys. Let me do Control Z on that last one. I'm going to keep that last layer empty for what I want to do. And merge down. And I'm now going to get my lasso tool. And I'm just going to mark, I'll leave anti-aliasing on, it's fine. I'm just going to select all the way around. And when you create a stamp in Mudbox, you have to build it this way, otherwise it won't display very well. So all I'm doing is selecting the outside. And I go to select, and I'm going to go to inverse. It selects the inverse, and I'm going to gut it. I'm going to crop it out right there. There it goes away. And now I'm going to save it as a PNG. So we'll save as PNG. Let's go to Sean's stuff and demos. There we go. PNG. And we'll call this skin if we want to. We could even save it if we wanted, even as a JPEG if I wanted to. So it's pretty much up to me. But I'm giving myself that edge area so that I can do some painting. If you look at here, we have human skin. If I switch to PNG, you should be able to see it. There's the previous one that I did. We'll call this skin 02. Just remember though, with the PNG you get a nice drop off. If you do JPEG, you could get white on the rim of your image, which would kind of suck. Alright, so we got this right here. I'm going to close it out. Boop. No keepy you. Alright, so we got our models here. They're in FBX format. I'm going to close Maya. Don't need that open right now. Don't save. We're going to go over here, go into Mudbox 2014. And I'm going to do a quick introduction on navigating and finding your way around this bad boy. And then we're going to talk about doing a little bit of projecting. So I got a texture we could project on just for fun on our hero face. And I'll show you how to isolate. I'll show you how to quickly run a directory, which is pretty easy. Won't get into masking just yet, and won't get into transferring stuff over to Photoshop, which we'll do later on, which is a pretty nifty trick I do show in my other videos. But in relation to skin, it actually really is helpful to be able to paint on both programs. I'm going to close that out. Alright, so we can go to File, Import. I'm going to go to my demos. Here goes arm and head. We're going to say Open. Cool. Now the one thing you got to watch out for when bringing stuff into Mudbox, you got to remember that these suckers come in at 10 times smaller than their average size. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but just keep that in mind. So you might have to scale it up. If you're just using it for texture, not a big deal. So we're going to switch to paintbrush for a second. We're going to pick on the human head here, the comic book head I have. And we're going to zoom in real quick here. And we're going to click on him, and I'll keep my finger on the B key. This allows me to lower my brush size. In navigating, it's just like Maya. You do Alt, left, Alt, middle for moving back and forth, Alt, left for rotating, and Alt, right for zooming in and out. If you get too far out, you can hit the A key, and it'll keep it centered into place. That'll try to mark it. So if you're working with multiple pieces and you bring them into Mudbox, you can actually right click and say, I want to isolate. So I can actually just look at him. And I can now make layers by going to my layer tab. There's two different areas. There's sculpt and paint. And I'm going to click on the plus with a piece of paper for a new layer. There we go. From here we can choose whether we want diffuse, we want speck, we want gloss. All that stuff works out really well. We'll call this base. So we got base on this guy all ready to go. So now the nice thing about using the paintbrush, I'm going to use this paintbrush here. If we have a particular color, we can flood his face with that color. So if, say, we want it to be a little bit kind of darker tan color, I can go in here using only this paintbrush, not the other brushes. I can say flood paint layer, which is nice. You get the whole color for that if we want to. I'm just going to undo that for a second. I wanted to show that to you. So let me actually make a new layer. Click on here. You can also right click and say new layer. We'll keep this a diffuse again, so we're all working in diffuse. Got this work looking pretty good. Now that we have this, I'm going to go in here and load my texture that I created, and we can start painting on it. But we can do that only with a stamp. So we're going to select stamp. With stamp selected, that's the tab down below on the right, I'm going to hit the arrow here, add stamp. And we're going to grab our skin too. Now this one's a little bit healthier, but yeah, let's do the healthier one. This is one from the previous lecture that crashed. Let me say open. Oh, sorry, that's because it already exists, my bad. So we'll click it here, and then now I'm going to paint. Let me get my Wacom here ready to go. And I can paint on this guy, we can get that texture. Now again, this is the one I made in Photoshop. So it shows you, it gives some nice underlaying tone for your model. Pretty cool. Paint, 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 paint. He's a little bit more soccer mom tan right now, but it's all good. We can mix it with the other one. So we'll just click on the arrow again, add a stamp. We can grab the other one that I just made, open that up, and we can do new layer. And we can call this guy second skin. Sounds weird. And this guy now I can paint on top this other guy. So if we want it to look a little bit different, make sure I get the right one. And do Control Z for a second. There we go. So I can paint on top this guy. And if I want, I can blend them. And the nice thing about this, it works just like Photoshop. I can do multiply if I want for really bad tan. I can do color if I want to grab the color from it. And as I paint, it'll pick up that color. Kind of nice. And especially good if you want to put a little bit more displace type of color into your scene. And we can erase it too. So you say, oh man, I messed up. Wasn't thinking, had too much alcohol when I was painting. You can go in here and you can change this up, and you can actually force the discoloration we've been talking about, or the uneven discoloration that can happen, or a color on a person. We can add one more layer here. I'll do new. He does really look orange, but we can change that even with the hue shift down below. And this one here we'll do red. Sorry if I'm going a little fast here. I don't want my video to be too long. And with that red, I can choose the brush that they have built in here called Fleshy. It works really nice. So I'm going to choose Fleshy. I'm going to go back to my paintbrush. I'm going to change the color. And you probably have to do it twice because I clicked it. I was in the wrong brush. You always want to make sure you're in the right brush and you click the right thing. So let me go in here. And Mudbox sometimes has a refresh issue. Change my color just by clicking on that swatch. Hit done. And I'm going to click on that Fleshy brush again with that red active. So now I'm going here and lower my brush size. There we go. And I can start painting red on the ears. Now bear with me, it's just the beginning here, and we can lower the opacity on that. So we get a little bit of a red tint in there. And we can erase by going to paint erase. Let's say it's got too much of a definite line. And I'm going to switch. He's stylized, so if I want to switch, I could use, as into erase, I could switch to the Cliff brush, which gives a nice effect to it. And you can turn on randomize at any time on any of your brushes. And this works like jitter in Photoshop. So when I erase or paint, it shifts and rotates my brush like that. Pretty cool. Pretty nice. All right, I'm going to do one more thing, and we'll do another video when we talk about transferring stuff over into Photoshop. I'm going to use, now we use stamp, that kind of acts like your alpha in ZBrush, your brush type. I'm going to switch to stencil. Now stencil projects. I can load it again through the little arrow, but it can actually load, if I click on this image, it will load an image that I can actually see what it looks like on the object. It's gray right now because I need to be in projection mode. I'll repeat that. So whenever you're using stencil, you have to be in projection mode. That was almost like a Swedish accent. I said stencil. All right, so don't ask. All right, so we're going here. We're going to lower the size of this, bring it in, kind of line them up a little bit. Wow, this is pretty close to the scale. My dude has a huge jaw. And we'll make a new layer. I'll just keep it generic for now. Running out of time. And I'll go in here and I'll paint, and you'll see we're transferring that skin texture on my model. And if I want, I could keep some of that and even lower the opacity on it and hit the Q key to hide that. And you can play with these things if you want to on your multiply, whatever you want. You can make it look like he has bad liver spots or whatever you want there. And we can tweak it out as we go. Now we can also erase too, or blur it. Say you want to blur that a little bit. I have the blur brush to blur it out. Works pretty nice. You can get some of that discoloration on this guy. And we'll just, I know it looks very stylized right now, but that's fine. Bring that in. And so it doesn't look like he has horrible liver spots. We'll just lower that down a little bit there, and we can play with this guy as we go. Alright, so that's about it. I'll make another video on this, and we'll talk about exporting this guy over to Photoshop and tweaking with him a little bit, and maybe even removing the soccer mom tan he's got going on. Alright, that's it.